morning, good afternoon, good evening. Sudan is the largest displacement crisis in the world. Those headlines are depressing. I think we in Africa must sit down and ask ourselves, why is it that Africa has been plagued by all these problems in this day and age? Why is it? What is it? I think that is a serious issue that we must address. And we can no longer kick it down the street. We have to bite the bullet and ask that question. Then, why is Africa plagued by all these endless problems, one crisis to another?
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. Yesterday I said that the problem with Zimbabwe, but now when you look at it in the context of Africa, I still say there is a huge imbalance in our political system, in our way of life, our day to day. you know that imbalance is causing everything we are seeing today. When you have leadership that is not of the people and by the people, it creates a friction. We are no longer in that society where the countries that are enjoying real democracy, you know, we we think we are doing, we are playing the democratic act, but in real essence we are not. So we are being found out that, you know it's all a lie. It's all a mirage, to make it appear as if, we are every one, country in Africa is a healthy and functioning democracy. I mean, most countries, probably except just a few, they hold elections. But the question is, are they democratic elections? Are they free, fair, and credible? This is the question that each and every one of us should be asking. You know, we we have settled for less. I remember a few days ago we had a discussion in another group where somebody says it is our right to vote. It is our right to participate in an election. And I said to him, ZANU PF, and now I will join everything and say, all African leaders know that it is your right to participate in an election, but they also know that you do not mind whether it is free, fair, and credible, as long as you participated. So here we are getting settling for less, and we are comfortable with it. There is an imbalance.
Well, to some of our listeners there who do not know, the country Sudan is situated um, just south of Egypt, north of Ethiopia, sandwiched there with Chad on the other side. And the country has been in political turmoil for many, many years. Initially, it was the northern Sudan fighting the people in the south. And then the country was divided. There's now northern Sudan and southern Sudan. And still the turmoil and chaos and killings and suffering has continued. In the picture there is the former president of Sudan, and he was deposed by the military, who, after a short period of having a civilian government, started fighting among themselves. And the country has been dragged into some of the heartbreaking suffering and needless deaths that one can imagine. It is really heartbreaking that a country like that that's got a lot of wealth, a lot of potential, has been in such a mess for so long. And like I said, it's not only Sudan. Many other African countries, maybe the problem is not as pronounced as that in Sudan. But many of us have suffered a similar fate. Zimbabwe gained its independence in 1980. And up to today, 45 years later, we cannot hold free, fair, and credible elections. And so we've been stuck with this corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical ZANU-PF dictatorship, assisted by its equally corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless MDC Triple C sidekick. So we've got to ask the question again, why is Africa plagued by these endless problems in this day and age? Why is Africa failing to learn from human history? This is all about governance, yes. But other nations have learned what it means to govern yourself. Why is it that we in Africa are failing to learn? Ben.
Ian Smith, later in the years, said something that really made sense to me. And he says, you can only give a person the right to vote when they understand what that right is all about, when they understand the meaning of their action. Now, a lot of people would love Zimbabwe to be a democratic country. I mean, it's beautiful when you see other countries do, run their economies, how they do their elections, and so forth. But do we understand do we truly understand what democracy is all about? Because one of the fundamental requirements of democracy is for people to be knowledgeable, to understand just the basics of how a functioning democracy works. And then again, I'll refer to what I said yesterday. It's very difficult to even start a debate or a conversation with either an opposition member or a ZANU PF member. Both, before you even go anywhere, they are already labeling you. They are already insulting you. Eh, Then straight away, there is democracy outside the door. So we love the idea, but we cannot do it. I think this is where the problem is. We love the idea. And I'll give you examples. Every time, in different African countries, people uprise. Zimbabweans are quick to say, these guys are good. Let us do this. They love that idea, but they do not know and they do not care how you get to that point. And again, I say, we love the sound of democracy, but many of us are clueless in how democracy works. And this expands right into Africa. This is why when you brought out that map there of Africa, you know, look at the percentage of the countries that are doing good. If you could just bring out that map, it's a sad sight. We are all in red. Look at that. We may look at the yellow. It's not good. We may try and say, oh, well, this one is not darker. It is not good. We just have two countries or three out of all that that are doing good. And we have seen on TV how South Africa conducted their elections. Opposition sitting right there with his laptop, ruling party, this one is doing that, tallying their figures. Nobody is hiding anything from anybody. You could see what was going on. You could trace. Zek, on the other hand, would take 3, 4, 6 months counting half the number or less than half the number of what South African population is. And you will still not even, understand a single thing on how the figures and everything came to be about. And then you were surprised why we are red. We love the idea of democracy, but very clueless what it entails and what it demands.
If I had to answer the question, why is Africa plagued by all these problems of bad governance? My answer would be that we in Africa have failed to embrace the advantages or the importance of accepting that none of us as an individual are perfect. It is fundamental in this case that people appreciate it. We still have the mentality of the primeval mentality of dominate or be dominated. So you'll find it's a repeated cycle where, as much as people would say the present government is corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical, and they'll fight to remove it, as soon as they get into power, they become the same thing. We fail to break this cycle of yesterday's liberators becoming today's suppressors. And this is why we keep repeating the same cycle. To appreciate democracy, one has got to accept that none of us have the monopoly of knowledge. None of us have the divine right to rule. We must be accountable to the people. But that is a quantum leap. And many of our African leaders have failed to make it. While they are joining and suffering with everybody else, they will, yes, talk about democracy, talk about human rights, talk about freedom. But as soon as they get anywhere near power, they flip over. Their instinct is to dominate. And this is what has plagued countries like Sudan. You always have a situation where yesterday's liberator become tomorrow suppressor. And the cycle continues. And some of the things, the outrageous things that yesterday's leader was doing will be repeated by the new incoming government. And until we learn to accept the simple principle behind democracy, which is do unto others as you would want them to do unto you, I don't think we'll ever get out of this mess. What is happening in Sudan is happening in many other African countries, albeit maybe not at the same scale. But it is. And this has made it very easy, of course, for outsiders to come in and colonize us and enslave us, because we have failed to make that quantum leap. We should not be seeking to dominate other people. As much as we don't want to be dominated, we should also realize that if you seek to dominate other people, you're just repeating the cycle. And yet, this is at the heart of our problem. We talked about the opposition in Zimbabwe. They were elected to implement democratic reforms to stop ZANU-PF rigging the elections. But when they got into power during the GNU, what Mugabe did to them, he said to them, listen, you can have a share of the spoils of power. And needless to say, they grabbed that and forgot about the reforms. They failed to implement even one token reform because they believed they were now part and parcel of the ZANU-PF dictatorship. They were members of this exclusive ruling elite. They could now dominate. And that's all they care about. It is a pity that we are caught up in this hopeless cycle. But I think we can get out if we apply ourselves. Thank you very much, Ben. Do you want to give your closing remarks?
In closing, I would want to your last part when you said we will have to get out. You know, let's be honest. When you look at a track record like how Mnangagwa has, and you find out that he still managed to become president, and during that takeover, he was wearing a white robe that had been cleansed by the people of Zimbabwe, including the intellectuals. And then again, you can go to the opposition, Chamisa. Chamisa stood up and said, "Congratulations, Zimbabwe. You know, you have won the election. I've put everything in place." And now, when you ask the question to say, but this guy was lying, he was taking us as a fool. He is clothed in a white robe by the same people of Zimbabwe. They will tell you he did not mean it literally. It was metamorphic or whatever, you know. My point is, it is the people themselves that have created the pedestals for these leaders. In fact, they have put the leaders to trample on their heads just to defend them. If somebody like Chamisa was to get into power and with his track record of lying, do we stand a chance? The answer is no. There will be no change. We are playing a very dangerous part in what Zimbabwe is today. Africans are playing the part in which Africa is today. We are creating demons. We are creating evil kings and kingdoms, the people. So unless we, first of all, change our mindset, how we operate, how we encourage our own debate, to build each other, to correct each other, I don't see us coming out of this mess. Like, I just want to be honest. Unless we, the people, change. Because Mnangagwa is not going to change as long as we are supporting him and as long as he's being made king by Zimbabweans. Chamisa will never be accountable as long as his followers defend him. So we have a problem. And I'm afraid that if we, the people, cannot change the way we operate, the way we think, we are going to be here for a very, very long time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to remind the listeners out there that we are always out at 7 o'clock, sorry, 6 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwean time, Mondays to Friday, and on Saturdays and Sunday, we'll be on the platform, but we invite you, the listeners, to join in and use the link at the bottom of the screen to join in the discussions. This coming Saturday, we'll be discussing the dramatic events in Tanzania, what it means for the people of Tanzania, and what it means for the people of Zimbabwe. We would want to hear your views. The link is at the bottom of your screen there, like I said. If you go to StreamYard, you'll be able to join us. 6 p.m. UK time, 8 p.m. the Zimbabwean time. Thanks again, and have a good night.